The Lost Signals present
A joke on the children.
a Bon Mott's Halloween series
What's up, ninjas?
celebrating
Left turn.
horror
Sequels.
with in-depth analysis,
Do I look like someone who cares what God thinks?
adult content,
It's okay, he just wanted his machete back!
adult language,
Well, that's just what we call pillow talk, baby.
and spoilers.
If he dies, I'll be a murderer.
Join us.
Gotta love these parallel universes.
Hello and welcome back to MOTS-O-Ween 2017 Left Turn Horror Films. Although this one isn't quite a left turn film, as precedent was set in the first film of...
I think it still counts pretty decently, though, and we'll say why.
But when I get to themes, I'll explain why I wanted to review this film in particular. And we are reviewing Leprechaun 6, In the Hood 2, Back to the Hood. I'm Jonathan Ian Manzer, here with Stephen Ramosi.
Hey, this is shaping up to be a good episode.
Rich Perry.
I'm looking forward to it.
And Scott Thurlow.
And nobody steals me gold.
So, Rich, you have a funny logline for us?
Oh yeah, Leprechaun 6, search for Warwick's gold fronts.
Indeed. We'll tell you why.
Which will make sense during the summary of this movie.
You'll see why that's good.
So, Scott, would you like to tell us about this majestic film with intro, body, and conclusion?
I'll certainly try. So, a bunch of young youths are doing things in their hood, if you will. The various activities, and they happen to... I don't want to go too much, overbear you with exposition, because the film already does that. But... quickly enough, one of the main character's girlfriends falls through a well or a poorly laid out patched hole in the floor of a nearby youth center and stumbles upon a small chest of gold, which then summons, of course, the titular leprechaun.
A leprechaun dungeon.
Yeah, sure.
We agreed on this.
She falls into a leprechaun dungeon, I guess. There actually is a pretty good cold open where a priest banishes the leprechaun to hell. And then I guess it was underneath.
I guess the hell is just 5 feet into the ground.
Yeah, well,
I feel like that was the
dude.
ending of the first Leprechaun in the Hood,
Maybe.
which none of us have seen.
It doesn't matter. I'm judging this film in a vacuum, as we do all films. So that, as I said, she stumbles upon the small chest of gold, which contains the leprechaun's evil leprechaun's mystical treasure, and he comes back. They spend it on various things,
and it's good.
Yep, and we'll tell you what they spend on and how good it is. However, the point is that someone's, like I said, the leprechaun, and he hunts them down one by one in order to retrieve his gold, and eventually have a big duel and sort of win, but not quite, of course, because the old horror trope, he's going to come back in the next one, and this is the sixth film anyways. That's pretty much it. It's them figuring out that Leprechaun is indeed the evil force, the thing that's happening in the hood, if you will, like I said, and they have to fight him off as he murders various characters one by one until they figure out how to stop him.
Scott, I don't mean to interrupt here, but
I'm done.
I need to... yeah, okay. This is... When I watched this as a teenager, I understood that it was implicitly racist.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize how explicitly racist it is too.
Sure.
It is. I don't necessarily feel uncomfortable watching this film.
I sometimes
do.
But it is really, really... for a Leprechaun film, it is handled poorly.
It has a lot
when you started that sentence, Ian, I thought you were going to say, when you said, I underestimated how racist this movie was.
Yes,
because that's exactly, I think that's exactly what happened. And watching it again...
Pretty sure we all did.
Strangely enough, we looked up the screenwriter about halfway through the movie when I was feeling somewhat uncomfortable in a certain scene. And he is even at the time, there's an old, white, bald guy. And I was like, oh, this makes it somehow way worse.
So this brings up the question of who was this movie intended for? And regardless of whether it was intended to, like, by Lionsgate, I think was the one who produced it.
Sure.
Whether it was intended to bring in, like African Americans to, like, a horror film, because that was big back in the day. We were talking about Bones earlier with Snoop Dogg. Or whether it is to make fun of urban culture for white suburbans. Either way you look at it,
it's not good.
It's not good for how it handles.
Not a good look at all.
I agree. So, like, again, like, maybe that's more the themes, and yes, it's certainly contained. We discovered that
it needs to be addressed.
Yes,
early.
you're right.
Can we start calling ourselves white suburbans more? Also,
I thought we already have.
I fucking love that term.
Well, you can certainly do it. But to be fair, in all seriousness, like, that it has to be brought up, like, now and to address, like, because it is contained throughout the entire film, regardless of whether or not it's supposed to be horror or comedy or both. But I'm going to speak to the narrative because I'm trying to stick to that. I'm going to give it, I think, a 1 at best. It has enough credit.
What are you giving the 1-2 intro?
I think each of them contributes, like, a point, like 3 to equal a 1, Rich. Like, to answer your question, like, none of them earn a 1 outright. I'll tell you that much. But maybe, like, it holds together just enough, and, like, Ian likes to use this, so I'll steal this from him, for what it is, beyond, like, for being, like, a B-ish horror movie, I guess we'll say, like, in the 6th entry, or whatever it is in the franchise, of an established horror franchise, and yes, also definitely being a left turn. I think it's held together with leprechaun blood just enough throughout to give it a 1, like, sprinkled out for the intro body conclusion.
So I think the intro is strong, especially when it deals with the priest battling as the cold open.
Yeah, it was a good cold open for sure.
I was engaged in the movie far more in the intro than I was at any other point. The question I have is, the body was entertaining, and it's a very simple story. It's incredibly so narrative wise.
It's so simple that the protagonist figures it out within seconds of first seeing the leprechaun.
So I'm not sure how to weight the body necessarily. The conclusion I'm definitely giving a 0 to, because at that point it lost whatever
charm it had.
Not only charm, but uniqueness to it.
Yeah.
And it devolved into a very, very straightforward, and for the whatever creativity it had in the body and intro was completely gone by the conclusion.
I agree with that.
Yeah, so, like, this movie was entertaining, but, like, it was entertaining because it was so laughable, which I think is the phrase that I may use several times tonight. But, like,
I get you.
It was that's exactly what it was. It was just like, this is so over the top and ridiculous that you have to laugh at it in order to not be, like, horribly disturbed by it, I suppose. And like, it's not horribly disturbing. It's not, like, any more over the top than a lot of other, like, just racist
similar
shit
ones
that you've seen before. Like, this happened all through the 90s. Like, you saw this same type of crap happening all the time. But at the same time, like, there were parts that were funny and, like, they were played for laughs, and, like, yeah, it's like, yeah, this is pretty funny. It just wasn't that good. I guess I'll give it a 1. I did like the like, storybook opening that it had. I thought that was.
I'm glad you mentioned that,
and I think that was the best part. I completely agree with that.
I agree. Yeah.
As far as a horror movie went, there were a couple of, like, interesting death scenes, but nothing that was really super original as far as horror movies
Nothing
go.
broke the mold.
The death scenes got really repetitive after a while.
Yeah, and they got really boring because he just kept stabbing people with blunt objects and killing them with them, which was, like, the first time
a joke unto itself.
he did it with a bong, and that was easily the best one. And then he did the same thing several other times, and, like, whatever, it got boring. So, like, I'll give it a 1 for that storybook opening, because I like that. The continued use of the storybook swipes throughout the movie, like the wipes, the screen wipes
I guess that's
throughout the movie
style.
were terrible. Yes, but, like, you know, that's trying to continue on with the original plot device of the storybook, and
So they
It
couldn't
just
figure out
didn't-
what
it just
kind of
didn't
wipe they
work.
wanted to have.
after that. But the beginning was fine, so I'll give it a 1.
I actually set my expectations lower than all of you probably. Like this was like
Fair.
squarely bad movie night movie for me. So I was looking at how bad it was in the context of how funny I could find how bad it was. And I think I'm going to give it a 2. Simply
Yeah.
because I like intro is my favorite part, obviously.
Mhm.
And I think between the body and most of the conclusion, not the last 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Cause I turned into angry horror movie viewer where I'm just screaming at the television for them to run when they just stand there and watch all of this happen. And so
I'm going to agree with your assessment, Rich, that I did find it entertaining enough, though, and as I said, the narrative's not complex at all.
Or good.
And I'm going to, as a plot, as a fairy tale plot, a morality tale, granted, the themes of it are terrible, but just taking it as a narrative structure, it's fine the way they handled it, and it was entertaining enough as a bad movie, so I'm going to give it a 2. But and again, 0 for the conclusion.
I get you.
All right, I'm going to go on to themes.
Here we go.
Do it.
Now, as I said, I'm going to give it why I chose this film was that this was the first film that I really explored the implicit themes. And it turns out they're pretty, in your face when you come in here. But
Once you can see it, you can't look away.
I took pride upon myself back in high school in discovering how fucked up the message in this movie was. But if you take this, so there's basically 4 main characters you're dealing with. One dies quite early, but and only one dies quite early.
And the rest don't die
Yeah.
at all.
Emily has no characterization, really, aside from her
She has the flimsiest of it ever.
relationship with Rory.
Mm-hmm.
Rory is an ex-con, sort of. He went to jail for, 2 months? Something that is
Yeah.
really weird.
It was unclear the math of that.
But he is a drug dealer, and he is kind of drawing Emily into the bad side of their situation. Jamie is just a straight-up comic relief pot smoker. He spends the Leprechaun's gold.
He's the fool,
weed.
if you will.
He smokes it, and it was good.
two garbage bags full of weed.
Yes.
Mhm.
Gets a lot of weed.
A lot of it.
And Lisa, who is perhaps the only character that I even gave a shit about in this. She wants to escape her situation and go off to college. She's the only one to die. And
Of course.
every one of the other characters is using the Leprechaun's gold for their own purposes, for their own
Their own little personal gain kingdom.
To spend all their money on things that aren't worthwhile, in a sense, on
Material
and,
stuff.
Yeah, and Lisa is the only one attempting to better her life, and she gets punished for that. So, and the theme of this work is: don't try to better yourself. Spend your money.
Stay asleep, buy and consume.
Yeah. And it
It's
really,
basically they live.
Yeah.
Emily, because Emily herself had the same dream in the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
And then she just, over the course of giving it up, like the Leprechaun said, she just did a 180 on her morals.
Yep.
And in the course of giving it up and ending up with Rory, it's you could see her plot armor thicken as it was.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah, but all the characters who, in a sense, because horror movies are generally done for the sake of morality. People who are sexually loose end up getting punished. People who are drink and do drugs generally are punished, and it's usually the virginal woman at the end who survives. This, in a way, flips that aspect of the virtuous get punished and the sinful are rewarded.
Yeah.
And written by a white
to
guy.
a negative connotation,
African Americans.
absolutely. Yes.
It's awful. I hate this movie for that, and I'm going to give it. It's an effective one, but I'm going to give it a full 0 just based on what it's intending to do. I don't know if that's fair enough to our.
I agree. It's really insidious in that sense, and like it's.
You could give it a 1 on principle. No, a 1 on technique,
but
and like a 0 on principle.
Exactly. That's pretty much what I'm going to say, Rich. To what Ian just said, like, yeah, once you notice that, you're like, go fuck yourself, movie, because of this. So like,
I think what drove the point home and like pissed me off the most is she's in the process of filling out an application.
Yeah, she's filling out a college application when she gets murdered.
Yeah. Like it's so glaringly obvious, as you said, like once you're like old enough or like know enough about narrative to realize that, and it's terrible. It's really pretty awful. But like you said, like it was marketed sort of for that, or like it intended that, and like it. I guess maybe you could say that it.
Here's the thing: I think it was marketed as
it's a terrible message,
a joke upon urban culture.
All right,
and,
I don't even know. If you can say that.
I said that. Watch the trailer,
right.
And it highlights all the points of making fun of this kind of culture. But then that's the explicit part. The implicit part is much more insidious, as you brought up.
Exactly.
And I have a rage at this movie for that.
I feel like we have a duty to give it a 0. It's almost like the propaganda thing which you brought up in like other various episodes, where even if it's propaganda that's obvious and you agree with it, it's still propaganda. So you have to realize that. And if it's like bad, like a negative propaganda, you have to call it out for that. Yes. And that's why I'm also giving a 0.
You're citing precedent for my 0. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I'm going to give this a 0. I don't have much more to say about it. I think
I can't.
I think it's a garbage movie in terms of themes.
So I have 0 respect for the screenwriter of this movie, especially as you said, Steve-O, looking what he looks like and looking that up in the middle of it.
Sorry, Rich. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm gonna. Man, 1 for technique, 0 for principle.
Yeah.
That's a 0 overall.
I think we can all agree on that. Yes.
Yeah. All right, Stephen. Let's move on from this depressing conversation to how effective of an antagonist is the screenwriter.
Well,
that's a meta kind of
the screenwriter himself. I wish he had written himself into this movie.
Maybe he is the Leprechaun.
Killed himself. But in that he didn't. I guess we have to talk about Leprechaun's Warwick Davis.
My man Warwick Davis.
Who's a great actor and actually did a pretty good job in this movie with his lines that were written and he's kind of a hammy guy. I like him.
He chooses all
the skill that he had in selling the script.
Yeah,
was amazing.
Yeah,
I did not think he was going to pull off half of the shit that he did in this movie.
But like when he starts smoking weed, just acts like a fucking fool for like 20 minutes because he's high as hell. He did a good job, and as Warwick Davis always does. I think he's a really good actor in anything he's in. And I will say this: anytime that you forgot that you were supposed to be scared of the Leprechaun, he was there
to remind
you that you're supposed to be scared of him. So at least in one point, the script does a good job in making him an ever-present danger to the protagonists, and I'm going to probably give him a 1 for that.
Interesting, because hear out my point on this.
Mm-hmm.
Taking nothing away from Warwick Davis, I really enjoyed his performance, and I think he was having a lot of fun with his part.
Yes, right.
Except the problem is they played very fast and loose with the powers that Leprechaun has.
I knew you were going to fucking say that.
That's true.
And to the detriment of the film. Because
that's going to go into style for me, though.
Yeah, but I think that's part of how they, for instance, in an earlier scene, they established Leprechaun can do X.
X, Y, and...
Mm-hmm.
In this situation, later on, he should do X to then continue. No, he all of a sudden lost that power.
Yeah.
And then in the following scene, he gets it back.
It does happen a bunch.
And noticeably, often, enough that you guys were complaining about it audibly during...
amongst the other things we were complaining about.
Yeah.
But to be fair, you're right, because it's interesting because we've come up against this issue again a number of times, where if you establish rules and then completely break them, then nothing stands whatsoever. But the question comes down to, as at least we've recently tried to drill down to, is it an effective antagonist? And I think yes. And as you said, like it's almost like a Charlton Heston plus William Shatner playing a leprechaun. Like he's hamming it up like every time he's on screen, and as you said, he's having a really fun time with it. So I think it's over the top. It's theatrical. It's like again your B movie, like larger than life, ironically villain. But I don't know. I enjoyed when Warwick was on screen, being the fulfilling the role of the leprechaun.
So. I have a theory for why that was the case.
Okay.
I think he was just that high.
He might have been. He might have just like
better.
I have to get real high to get through this movie.
Yeah. He's like Christ.
But his character in the movie just gets addicted to weed from the first hit that he takes.
Gets shoved into a fridge and then just hotboxes it.
So I'm assuming that every time he's off camera, he's just like ripping the bong that he stole, and just like forgets the powers that he has until he gets punched in the face.
Or
he's
maybe,
like, all right.
Or Rich, maybe it enhances his powers. That's why it's like. Either way, you're right. It's inconsistent as hell in terms of that. Yes. But I enjoyed, as we said, Warwick's performance. Like, I think he's played the leprechaun in every one, right?
I feel like the inconsistency worked with what you were saying before, where like every time you were laughing at the leprechaun, he reminded you why he was a threat.
Yeah.
Almost immediately afterward.
I agree. So I think it's pretty effective, and I enjoyed the performance, and it was amusing, and I bought into it for the most part. So
I'd agree.
I'm gonna give it 1.
I'm going to give it a 0 because I can't overlook the inconsistency of it.
Fair enough.
Fair.
I'll give him a 1.
Right,
I mean, the inconsistencies weren't.
They didn't
killer clowns from outer space.
Yeah, exactly.
No, killer clowns always
bite your
by
tongue.
rules.
Bite your tongue,
right.
Rich.
We'll discuss that later.
Rich, so continue on
with protagonist.
Yep.
Emily. I thought she did a fair job. I liked her as the final girl. I mean, she was pretty, even though she I saw this coming from a mile away that she wasn't going to listen to the prophet character.
The wise old gypsy.
Yeah, the wise old gypsy.
Yeah.
That told her.
Well, she obviously had to not do that, otherwise it wouldn't have been a plot. The movie would have been over after 15 minutes.
Yeah, but but the fact that she immediately realized her mistake and figured out the basic plot during her run to Rory.
Yeah.
I don't think she did a decent job. I mean, like you said, she was kind of flat. What I thought they were going to do with her characterization, they moved to Lisa right before they killed her off.
And then killed her.
That's a good point.
Right away.
It's odd, yeah.
So, they kind of shuffled anything that made her interesting onto the sacrificial lamb.
See, there's that idea of the neutral face for protagonists, that you're supposed to be able to imprint yourself on it. And I think that they did a hell of a job of making her a neutral face.
And it's and a lot of the moments where she could have proved herself to be a better protagonist, they kind of gave to Rory.
And vice versa.
Weird. Yeah.
I can't give too much credit for protagonists. I'll just say that outright. I don't
honestly like the secondary.
Emily was fine. I liked Lisa better than Emily, and she died right away. And Rory was shitty until he wasn't shitty, and that was the thing. He was plot device, not shitty.
They set
right,
well, plot armor, like Rich
they
said.
set him up to be a bigger part of the story.
Yes,
than he was.
Yeah,
and then he just wasn't. They completely wrote
he was
this.
he was a straight up scumbag for most of this movie
for 40% or so.
And anytime that they needed a douchebag, he was right there. He was hey, here I am. I'm the douchebag guy. And then he was all right, now I'm going to save the day. But I'm going to, my gun's in jam. All right, Emily, you do shit.
All right. I guess, I don't know, I'm mostly
here, I'm back with my gun. I unjammed it 25 minutes later.
Yes, thank you. I'm pretty close on your side though, Rich. I enjoyed her as a protagonist, and I guess when discussing horror movies of this nature, I would say, did she make better informed decisions versus not? So not always, but I think more often than not. Her final plan was good.
A lot of her decisions were undermined because she fell in line with the secondary characters too much.
She was surrounded by lesser intelligent characters for the most part.
That's a weak protagonist, isn't it?
But at the end, That's what
Did
I'm getting
she, though?
to. That's the thing.
Like,
getting to that. No.
I'm sorry. She did, but was it a worthwhile arc? It wasn't the arc that I thought she was going to have.
What did she learn from all of this? I have no
To
idea.
love
Really.
Rory?
How did she change?
She changed by falling back into the old patterns that she had 4 months ago.
Yeah.
guess.
She ended where she began?
Because she
gave up the goal.
You know what's worse? She didn't change. She took a step back, and Rory didn't change at all.
Rory?
Oh man, that's a really good point.
Ooh, this is the worst.
I think you might
movie
have
of all
got me.
time.
Like I was going to give it just an entertaining middle of the road one.
It's a stronger
because of-
zero than before.
Because of that point, Rich, I think I'm going to bump it down to a 0. You're right about that. You got me on that.
That's good. What are you giving it, Rich?
I'm going to have to give her a 0.
Oh, I was hoping
Yeah.
you were going to give it a 1.
No, you have to give it a 0 for that. I mean that.
Yeah, I was convinced.
You already
I convinced
did?
myself
Yeah.
of a 0 already, and then Rich
I was-
convinced me of a
I was going
of a
to-
double 0.
I was going to overlook
Can I
that
get him
stuff,
a
but
double 0?
I don't think we can or should, because of that nature of their characters or
Well,
the
yeah,
way
I
they
was
do their
going-
characters.
I agree with you. I was
Yeah.
going to overlook it, but I can't.
You're right.
Nah.
All right, Scott, supporting.
Alrighty, so who do we got? Random, their friends and stuff.
Esmeralda.
The other, yeah.
Jamie
all right.
and Rory.
The stereotypically named
Yes, the gypsy,
Gypsy woman.
the wise old gypsy who, foretells you your doom. And
You know what? It could either be a made up name or it could be her actual name.
Yeah,
could be a made up
either
name.
one work really.
Yeah.
Doesn't
actually matter.
She's the same person either way.
So I don't know, man.
Doesn't affect her
It
etc.
as much as we said about the protagonist, the secondary characters are sort of even worse in that sense because they're even more stereotypical.
Screen.
So I don't know if I give them enough credit. What?
Okay, first
Go
of
ahead.
all,
You got something to-
Esmeralda has a random magic battle.
All right, you're right.
She sure
But
does.
here's the thing. You're right. That was amazing.
Where did that come from?
You know what?
That was
So-
amazing.
You know the reason that didn't catch me as off guard as it should have is because she was way too calm about the prospect.
She was
of
ready
the
for that shit.
About the prospect
She
of the
knew
leprechaun
that there
coming
was
back.
going to be a leprechaun.
Yeah.
But I want to give this one credit. I think Lisa was an interesting character cut too soon. I think she should have been the main character of this.
Yes.
And
They should have switched. Yeah.
I actually enjoy. I think she was perhaps one of the best, aside from Warwick Davis, who's an established. She had one of the. She did the best job of acting in this.
She was up there for sure. So
Yeah, but she wasn't in it for very long, and every scene that she had, she got
brutality.
overshadowed or clipped out of.
It's because the movie
Because
wrote it that
knew,
way.
Yeah, the movie knew who the protagonist was, and she was becoming too interesting.
Well, here's the problem: the script didn't do her any justice, and the director didn't know how to direct this movie. And that's a problem.
Maybe.
That means that her character was way less interesting than she should have been, and Esmeralda
Or she wasn't
was
given
kind
enough
of
time.
bullshit. And
I don't know.
like that magic battle was entertaining. Yeah, I laughed a lot about it, but does that make it does it make her a good character? Not necessarily.
I don't know. You're right. It's really tough. To be sure, all joking aside, it's difficult. If I'm trying to tunnel vision it narratively wise, I'm
The guy who got killed by a
Watson-
bong
Watson
was
and
enjoyable.
company.
What's up?
Watson and Company
Yeah,
as secondary antagonists.
no, I know.
but
I was.
really-
I actually
yeah.
was going to bring them up.
Yeah,
I still I don't know, man. It's really tough. It's almost 50-50, but should I put the
They
magical
weren't
battle
really
into
interesting.
style?
They're just they're the older versions of the bullies that chase the main characters around.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. They're like crappy versions of every bully in every movie, right?
Yes.
Except they have guns, which they don't really use until
which
the
they
end.
don't use it until they use
once
them.
to zero
Yeah.
effectiveness against a
And
supernatural.
they don't kill anybody.
against a supernatural
Come on,
threat.
man, kill somebody.
I don't know,
if you use
dude.
your guns.
Ninja Cop.
No, that's
Ninja Cop.
he was there for one scene
No, he's there for 3 scenes.
Yeah.
to be a victim for the last one, I guess. But I get you. I know. I understand what you're saying. I don't know, man. Again, I guess similar to Protagonist, I don't know if I want to give the movie credit
What about
on this front
what
because
about
of that.
besuited white man who tries to buy drugs? Oh, actually, successfully buys drugs.
Yeah. And gets away with using the N-word.
No, that's terrible too. Yeah, that's why I'm not.
Gets away with. I mean, yeah, he does get away with
It's
it.
a
That's
whole
fucking
it's an
bullshit.
elaborate joke that yeah.
I honestly thought he was going to get his ass kicked by everybody on the basketball
Probably
court.
should have.
No,
they
see,
corrected him and
you
made
know what?
him say
That just
ninja
convinced me again.
instead for
Because
some
of
stupid ass
that-
reason.
Because of that scene, I'm going to give it a 0 because they allowed him to use that to say that, and then it was like, oh, the ninja joke is set up. That's great, I guess. Yeah, that's funny, but you don't get to just like slip that into your movie without any consequences, man. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, no. Apparently, well, the consequences that we're going to give supporting characters is 0.
So,
at least I am.
So, final judgment is on you, Leprechaun, because of this.
Whatever the writer's name is, which you don't deserve.
It doesn't
to be
matter.
Named, you
We're not
piece of
even
shit.
going to mention your name, even if I remembered it.
You know what? I thought they were going to kill off Jamie and keep Lisa. And that's exactly what should have fucking happened.
Yes, I wish. So 0.
Yeah.
0.
So I thought he would. I thought with
0.
his survival,
No, I'm not giving you
he would
zero.
at least get some character development.
0, 1, 0, 0.
Don't presume upon my scores,
I
Steve.
apologize.
Good God. All right.
Give it a 1 for whatever.
I'm giving it a 1 because there were enough interesting...
He's saying Lisa was a...
I like
theory,
Lisa
yeah.
quite a bit.
I got you.
Yeah, you're right. That one white guy buying drugs is incredibly offensive. But this movie's incredibly fucking offensive.
Yes, it is.
That's true.
It is. All right.
Okay, and
I'll
on
accept
to
your
dialogue with me. So, this is interesting because there are funny parts of this film. There are very offensive parts of this film.
Yeah.
There are jokes that they go on
Somewhere in
way
between.
too
Sometimes they're
long.
both.
So, they have this sub joke in there about ninja instead of the N word, and it pays off with actually a very funny line when they gun down the leprechaun, and then he just kind of rises and
He resurrects.
says the joke.
Yeah.
It's really good, and then they bring it up again, and
It overstayed its welcome.
Kills it.
he killed it. I really don't know because some of the dialogue's funny and decent. Other times it's offensive and terrible.
That's the thing. You're right. It's 50-50. Like,
I think most of the time it was offensive.
Yeah.
it was very offensive. A lot of, like, for the, but some of the stuff that wasn't are like, I don't know, man. You're right. You know what? I'm going to give it an outright 0. Even though I did laugh at some of the stuff, it doesn't excuse the things that were like just didn't need to be there. There was no reason for them. And it was, again, offensive to everyone in the room, no matter what. More often than not. We were like, really? Seriously? Like they're doing this right now? So, yeah.
So
I'm done.
I'll be honest about my reaction to this. There were a lot of points in this where I laughed about how offensive it was. Because it made no qualms about trying to like hide its ridiculousness.
That exact thing there.
Like how ridiculous this movie actually was. And like, at some point you just have to find humor in like how over the top and fucking stupid that this shit is. And in that way, I'm not saying it was good dialogue, and I'm definitely not giving it a 1. But like in that way, it is humorous, and it's funny to watch this in the sense of like, what the hell were they thinking when they wrote this dialogue? What the hell was I don't even know the guy's name. We're not gonna
Doesn't matter.
But like, what
Fuck
the hell
him
was he
anyways.
thinking when he wrote this dialogue? And like that, to an extent, is funny to me. And like, I don't know. I guess that's all I'm going to say.
I get what you're saying, but I'm just not going to give it credit. But like trying to say like you're laughing like at the like how ridiculously offensive it can be.
Right.
Like I get that, but the problem is the intent of it wasn't for you to do that.
Yeah. No, I agree.
I'm just glad that they toned it down over the course of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because in the beginning, I was like, I don't know if I could sit through
You
an
could
hour and a
handle it,
half
yeah.
of this.
No, that's fair.
Yeah.
See, we were trying to think of a drinking game to play while we watched this. I suggested every time an offensive stereotype comes out, whether you're dealing with African Americans, you're dealing with Irish stereotypes, they're dealing with
Whatever it was.
Yeah. And Scott said, no, because I'll be dead by the
We're
end of
all
this.
going to die if we
Yeah.
had to do that, seriously. And I think that's the best evidence to give this a fucking 0.
It's just a bad movie. It's a relic. It's like you laugh at it like you laugh at a 1960s Looney Tunes, cartoon. Like it's just
because this was 2003.
no. Oh yeah, 2003.
that's
Yeah,
why it's egregious.
It was still. It was
and
like,
like
it was
but
emulating.
it's bad, and
yeah.
it's not like that. This shit has gone away, but like you laugh at it. You have to laugh at it like derisively, to an extent. Like
It was,
guess
too,
maybe,
it was too far into the 2000s to be emulating the like mid to early
exactly.
90s.
right.
Maybe I can laugh of it.
Oh yeah, and all the fashion sense was. Oh, we'll get into that style, but like
It's coming up.
yeah.
But either way, I said what I said, and that's why I'm giving it a fuck off 0.
Zeros.
Yeah,
all
I'm
around.
going to give it a 0 as well for sure.
So, Steve,
0.
on to you with style.
The style
or
of
fake
this.
57
So,
fake.
like, yeah, I guess that's the best part of this movie is 57 Fake, which is a Chinese
Look it up, buy a
knockoff
shirt.
brand
Buy a shirt from them or don't.
that was all over this movie. The Chinese must have paid for half of this movie.
Maybe that's why it's so offensive.
Perhaps. There was nothing all that memorable about any of the like cinematography. I don't even know if there was a soundtrack.
There
I don't
was.
Remember.
There was 2 songs.
I don't remember any song. Oh yeah,
like,
no. There
a
were,
vague,
yeah,
like-
actually, there was one song that I enjoyed.
Was it the montage song?
Yeah, the montage
Yeah.
song was pretty good.
The rest of it was like vague, like stock horror music.
Stock horror music and like some rap, some like 90s rap in the early 2000s, right? And like it wasn't all that great. That one song was good. That's probably the best I can say for style. The fashion sense, as you mentioned, Rich was like trying to call out the year that this movie was from, and he was like, I think this was like the mid 90s.
Mid to late.
Turns out it's 2003. So that's interesting.
Yeah, I figured like mid to late 90s because they were going hard on the denim coats.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the sweatsuits.
It was strange.
Yeah.
It was anachronistic, I suppose.
I want to bring up something quickly. You brought it up earlier, Steve-O, but the transitions. The
cuts
unnecessary
and the
cuts.
Horrendous.
I'm going to give it a shout out. We use Filmora for our editing.
We could do better.
But I feel that like on all their stock transitions on Filmora, it's like someone edited this film on that and used
Their
the
wipes.
stock
The storybook wipes.
Yeah.
What was it? Like you said, the clock wipe that like
Yep.
took place 15 seconds after they got out of the car.
Yeah, for
Like,
no reason.
There was like no reason to cut that amount of time out of the movie.
There was a scene that felt like mid-scene. They just cut to another scene.
You want to know why it
I
felt
have
like
no
that?
idea what happened.
Because I did exactly
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
But I'll say one. I'm going to make like a devil's advocate argument only for as we mentioned, the opening animation, because I think all of us enjoy that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But in no way outweighs the terribleness of
And
the
absolutely
rest
does
of
not
it.
make up for the rest of the movie.
And like you're right, like the thing is like the star wipe thing is like funny, like that's star wipe. I was waiting for a star wipe. I'm like they've used different
Couldn't
wipes
wait for a star wipe.
previously, like 4 or 5 times now.
They had me begging for a
I
star
can't-
wipe halfway through this movie.
But I actually do want to make like one secondary, like the Warwick's makeup was like actually pretty fine, except the special effects.
yeah,
were
but they had 5
terrible.
movies to,
Yes. So I mean, you're right.
perfect that.
I'm just
No, especially all right.
I'm pointing out that maybe the positives, but it definitely does not outweigh
And
by
this
the negative.
This is the point that I brought up every single time it happened. As low budget as this movie was, why would you waste most of it on CGI blood?
Yeah,
Like,
you're right.
could you like?
None of us could explain.
By the way, the CGI blood was terrible. It looked like the T-9000 was about to pop out of a puddle of blood.
It was. Oh my god! Like you said,
You're right.
like even at the end, like with the green, it's like they just could have used a bottle of antifreeze.
Yeah. Anything. Just
Yeah.
put green dye in some
Yeah.
water
All right.
and spread it
fine.
out on the ground.
So I have one last comment to make. I'm trying to do this with the style, is assessing it as a genre film. So this is could be either viewed as a comedy, which we've already discussed at length why it is. I will give it a
fails.
0 for a comedy, or you can view it as a fantasy horror film. And I think it failed miserably as a horror film as well.
I agree.
A couple, like as you said, the kills that they did in this were
Boring.
unique. Right at the first kill was probably
One was good.
yeah, and then afterwards it just
Then they did
Devolved.
And then it did that same kill 4
so,
times.
As a genre film, it fails miserably.
I agree on all fronts. You know, and whatever like positives there are like completely crushed by the negatives and the terribleness of it. So
You know what? I'm going to give it a 1 for how dated the style is.
for the retro amusement
Yep.
factor,
This leprechaun
Are you
came
serious?
back to his
Yes,
rainbow.
I'm very
that's
serious.
fair. Like I mean,
The
that's
clothing
amusement.
styles, the Nokia brick. Like, come on.
It's like nostalgia.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I guess.
2003 Nokia brick.
Sure.
It's like that's like, oh
Actually,
my God.
that was probably still around 2003. That was probably
you would. There were flip phones were big at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you still had it was
right.
mostly landlines.
We can look that up later. But I get you. I can see that.
Okay, and Rich, on to you with recommendation.
Yep.
I've been giving this some thought for the entire cast. And I would say, if you're looking for a bad movie to watch, you could find something better than this. Because...
or worse.
Or worse. But you're just... I kind of want to watch Leprechaun in the Hood.
Over this?
Yeah, to see how it fares against this one. Because this one just offended me so much that it took me completely out of the film.
Yeah.
And it was bad enough at the implicit and explicit things they were saying about people trying to better themselves and get out of the hood. But it was also the decisions that were made towards the end of the movie for any horror genre. It was just a whole bunch of dumbasses that should have been killed survive somehow. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. I pretty much was going to say that. It's interesting, I guess, that you recommend this one, and yeah, I've had an interesting time and enjoyable time discussing it. But at the end of the day, as Rich said, there's better bad horror films out there, and this one. Here's the thing, right? Now that as you said, as you talked it out and discussed it, this film should be better. Do not give this film any more attention than it needs to have, and in fact, give it less attention. Ignore it. Don't watch it. Watch something better. It fell into a left turn choices, sure, and by happenstance this season.
Listen to our review.
But watch instead of watching this film. Yeah, I'm not going to recommend
Actually,
it.
play the review while you're watching this film.
Yeah, instead of listening to it at all. Exactly. And that's all I got to say. 0. Do not recommend. Do not Leprechaun.
Even though I recommended this for the Halloween, MOTS-O-Ween, having rewatched it after
a number of
40 years or whatever.
Sure.
It can't be 14,
nope.
14 years. I cannot ever. I never want to see this film again. I've exercised some demon by reviewing it to warn people against, like Esmeralda. I'm probably preaching to.
But there's going to be some people that are not going to heed your word.
You're like Cassandra. We're going to watch it just because we said not to watch it.
Yeah.
And that's on you, motherfuckers.
Yeah. I warned you.
I agree. Don't watch this movie. You can watch another movie. There's other movies. Watch Conan in New York.
Watch Hercules in New York?
I'm sorry, Hercules in New York.
Watch any other horror film.
Same guy.
It's Arnold. It's Arnold. Watch some other garbage movie. Doesn't matter. Any other garbage movie. Don't watch this movie. It's not good.
Watch any other film that we've done for MOTS-O-Ween this year, but not this one.
It's not good in that way that not good is good. Go watch The Room. The Room is hilarious. And it's just a guy that just doesn't know how to make movies. Don't watch this fucking movie, because it's shitty.
Yeah.
And it's a guy that probably should know better, because he's written a bunch of other Leprechaun movies, and then wrote this piece of shit. So, that's my review. That's my recommendation. Don't watch this shit. 0.
Okay.
Agreed.
Well, final scores are... Rich gave it the highest score, with a 4.
Oh.
I gave it the second highest, with a 3, and Steven and Scott gave it a 2. The overall score of a 2.75.
Seems about fair.
Yes.
Baller.
One of the lowest movies we've ever reviewed.
For good reason.
Leprechauns can suck my balls.
Initially I thought I was going to give it a higher score, but then over the course of it, I thought I gave it a lower score. So just as I
that's pretty high.
Yeah, because as I spoke, I'm like, wow, I really don't like this movie.
Because here's the thing, it has a little bit of initial enjoyment with the absurdity of it.
And that wears off very quickly.
You realize what an offensive piece of trash it is.
Yeah.
So, on that note, I'm Jonathan E. Menzer, and you've been listening to MOTS-O-Ween 2017 with Stephen Ramosi.
See you later.
Rich Perry.
Spend some gold on some weed to possibly forget this.
And Scott Thurlow.
And then toss that weed into some concrete so you can forget this movie exists, as we just did. Good night. See you next time.
Editing and engineering by Christopher Morgan. Music by Christopher Morgan. Check us out on YouTube and iTunes for the shows, and on Facebook and Twitter for updates.